That's a good one, Cheech. Can you threaten to kick me in a funny way? Adam Harrison's world fell apart when the gold and silver pawn shop, which had been a successful family business, was ruined by betrayal and scandal. After Richard Oldman Harrison's death in 2018, the family's unity fell apart under lawsuits and angry accusations. Adam's hopes of inheriting a legacy were dashed as trust disappeared and the family's darkest moments came to a head. We now know about the heartbreak, betrayals, and shocking turns that led to their downfall. This is the story of the rise and fall of the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop. The Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, which is tucked away in Las Vegas, didn't always have cameras rolling or tourists lined up out the door. It started out as a small family business, nothing fancy, just a place where people could pawn their things for a little extra cash. But then the TV show Pawn Stars came out in 2009 and turned this humble Rick Harrison, the show's creator, became famous almost overnight. He had a knack for finding treasures and telling stories that hooked viewers. Some people say that nothing sounds better than vinyl, but for me, nothing sounds better than selling vinyl. The fame was great at first, bringing in customers, increasing sales, and making the Harrison family famous. But fame doesn't come for free. Behind the scenes, things were far from perfect, but what no one saw was what the cameras never showed. The deal that was made in the back room late at night would haunt Rick and his family for years to come. The shop's heart and soul was Richard Oldman Harrison, Rick's father. He was strict but fair, the kind of guy who got respect without saying much. He'd been in the pawn business for decades and knew his stuff. Customers trusted him, and fans loved his dry humor and Noon's attitude. But when the old man died in 2018 at the age of 77, everything changed. Losing him wasn't just a personal loss for the family. Without his steady hand, the family and business started to fall apart. Rick stepped up to take charge, but the family dynamic changed, and tensions that had been building for years came to the surface. One of the biggest problems was with Rick's mother, Joanne. In the early 2000s, Joanne was very sick and in the hospital, and while she was recovering, Rick convinced her to give up her 50% share of the shop. She later said she hadn't fully understood what she was agreeing to, but that wasn't the point. I should have known that with a guy like Steve Carell, he'd take any chance to mess with me. When Richard died, she thought she would inherit his 49% share, but things went wrong. Joanne sued Rick, saying he mismanaged funds and didn't give her money that was owed to her. She also said that Rick took advantage of her weakness years ago. The public court battle was nasty, dragging the family's name through the mud, which made things worse. Joanne asked for a restraining order. Rick was being sued by Joanne because she didn't want him to sell off family assets or hide money that she thought was rightfully hers. Court documents showed that Rick used to give her a regular allowance from the shop's profits, but that stopped in 2020. Joanne's health had also gotten worse and she needed expensive care around the clock. The restraining order request asked Rick to reinstate her allowance and stop making any financial moves without her permission. Even though Rick denied all the accusations and said that his mother was being used by others for their own gain, the damage had already been done and the family's reputation took a hit. While Rick dealt with the fallout from his mother's lawsuit, other scandals were brewing. In 2016, Austin Chumley Russell, the show's lovable goofball, got himself into a lot of trouble when police raided his home as part of an investigation into domestic violence assault. The raiders found a lot of illegal items, including meth. Chumley pleaded guilty to a felony weapons charge and a misdemeanor drug charge. He avoided jail time by agreeing to probation and counseling, but his legal problems cast a dark shadow over the show. Fans who had laughed at his antics on screen now saw a different side of him, and it wasn't pretty. Rick's son Corey Biggles Harrison also had problems. Corey had always been ambitious and eager to show that he was the future of the pawn shop, but his personal life was a mess. He would scratch little things on cards and sign them. This one is even dated January 1900. In an embarrassing incident, Corey was kicked out of a bar for urinating in public and throwing a bar stool. He later apologized, but the story went viral. Then there was the RV fiasco. Corey rented an RV for a desert vacation, but when he returned it, it was in terrible shape. The owner said it was trashed and had major damage inside and out. Corey's team blamed mechanical problems, but the incident didn't wash. Corey had health problems as well. His weight had gotten to dangerous levels, so he had gastric bypass surgery in 2010. The surgery helped him lose over 100 pounds, but it was hard for him to keep the weight off. The stress of fame, family drama, and running the shop got to him, and even though he tried to turn things around, Corey was often in the news for the wrong reasons. The show itself was not immune to controversy, which fans loved. Some of the experts who came in to value rare and unusual items had their own problems. For example, Johnny Jimenez Jr., an expert on toys, was accused of domestic violence, and Drew Max, an expert on sports memorabilia, was accused of authenticating fake items that were later sold at auction. These scandals made people question the show's credibility. Were the appraisals real, or was it all just for show? In one embarrassing instance, an expert misidentified an autograph on a Godfather script. The signature was said to be Al Pacino's, but it turned out to belong to someone else. Mistakes like these hurt the show's reputation over the years. As the years went by, Pawn Stars started to change. The early seasons were cute because they focused on the history and stories behind the things that were brought into the shop. But as the show became more popular, it became more about the drama. Reports came out that many of the interactions were staged. What would your wrestling name be? Guo sellers were pre-screened, items were appraised ahead of time, and even the family fights felt scripted. Fans who had watched the show expecting an authentic pawn shop experience started to feel let down. The show was still entertaining, but it had lost the unpredictable element that made it special. In the midst of all this chaos, the cast was hit with a new wave of scandals. Olivia Black, a former shop worker who became famous for her edgy style and lively personality, was fired when nude photos from her past were made public. Olivia was fired, which made fans angry because they thought it was an unfair and violent decision. Olivia went to court against the show, but eventually dropped the case. She went on to work as a model and in adult entertainment, but the incident left many viewers with a bad taste in their mouths. The shop itself had legal problems too. In one case, a man accused the gold and silver pawn shop of melting down a stolen coin collection worth tens of thousands of dollars. The shop denied any wrongdoing, saying the coins were lost. The items may have been sold or melted down before the theft was reported, but the incident added to the growing list of problems surrounding the business. It all began in a small shop, long before anyone could have imagined what it would become. Fame, fandom, and high-stakes thefts. The scene in Pawn Stars with Steve Carell starts out pretty normal, but things get weird quickly in a good way. The shop in Las Vegas has seen a lot of famous people stop by, but when a guy shows up looking a lot like the star of the movie Things, take a funny turn at work. When someone who looks and acts like Carell says he's not Carell, Rick can't help but ask him about it, and it turns out to be a hilarious misunderstanding. Carell's doppelganger has great comedic timing, which keeps Rick and the team entertained. The real highlight of this visit is when the man who might as well be Carell's twin shows interest in a World War II diver's knife. Rick is quick to present the piece, and right away the guy starts joking about how it can be used as a knife, bottle opener, corkscrew, and billy club all in one. The jokes flow naturally, creating a scene that could have been written for a sitcom. In classic Pawn Star style, a price negotiation follows. Rick suggests that the knife is worth $2,500 and the fake Carell offers a ridiculously high $4,000. Rick plays along and the negotiation turns into more of a comedy routine than a serious transaction. In the end, the knife stays with the guy. Mick Foley, the wrestling legend, walks into the shop with some vintage memorabilia. He has a Dud Love t-shirt and a Mankind mask that have both been signed by Foley. Rick and Chumlee are thrilled to see these items, especially when they learn that Foley himself has autographed them. Chumlee, being the wrestling fan that he is, starts to talk about Foley's different wrestling personas, such as Cactus Jack and Mankind. When Rick asks how much they are worth, the seller suggests $500 for both. Rick isn't going to buy the items until he knows for sure that the signatures are real. As usual, Foley is a good sport and waits while Chumlee calls in a friend who knows a lot about wrestling collectibles. To everyone's surprise, Foley agrees to look at the items himself and confirms that the mask and t-shirt are real, adding a bit of background about how limited the Dude Love shirts were because of how expensive they were to make. He tries to close the deal for $200, but the seller decides to keep the items. I'm going to play along, about $500, $300. That's the deal on another episode. Stan Lee, the famous comic book artist, makes a cameo appearance. A customer brings in an original Spider-Man comic strip from the 1970s that was signed by both Stan Lee and artist John Romita. The strip has a scene with Mary Jane and Spider-Man that was a bit racy for the time. Mary Jane is in a bathtub inviting Spidey over. Rick knows this piece is valuable. The seller's price of $10,000 seems high, so Chumlee, wanting to impress Rick, suggests taking the strip to the Marvel Avengers station in Las Vegas to be authenticated. There, Chumlee meets with an expert who confirms that the signatures are real. The seller tries to stick to the $10,000 price tag, but Rick, ever the negotiator, counters with $3,500. After some back and forth, they settle on $5,000, with Chumlee beaming with pride at having negotiated the deal. Meeting Stan Lee was without a doubt the best part of this episode. Dana White, president of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, makes a big appearance in Season 15, Episode 17. He is looking for a unique sword to add to his growing collection, and Chumlee and Corey show him a few, but it is a restored 15th century samurai sword that catches Dana's eye. Rick tells him all about the sword's history, including how it was used by a samurai family and how expensively it was fixed up in Japan. The asking price is Dana, always ready for a fight, counters with $28,000, but Rick won't budge. After some tense negotiations, Dana agrees to $35,000, but he's not done yet. Seeing more swords in the shop, Dana offers another $30,000 for the whole lot. Chumlee and Corey are thrilled with the huge sale and start packing up the swords. Rick, on the other hand, is not too happy when he finds out that they sold the samurai sword he told them not to sell. In the end, Dana walks away with $69,000, and he can only shake his head at the unexpected windfall. In one of the earlier seasons, Chumlee meets the famous but reclusive musician Bob Dylan. It all starts when a customer brings in a copy of Dylan's self-portrait album to try to sell it. Rick offers $50, pointing out that the album is in bad shape, but that he thinks it would be worth a lot more if they could get Dylan to sign it. Chumlee is then sent to find Dylan, who is in town for a concert, and against all odds, he finds him and gets Dylan to sign it. He then proudly returns the signed copy to the shop. Dylan gave the album to Rick, but instead of just signing his name, he added a message to Chumlee, which made it less valuable. Rick wasn't too happy about it, but Chumlee was thrilled to have met one of his heroes. Pawn Stars is great at mixing humor, history, and celebrity appearances in a way that keeps viewers interested. Whether it's famous wrestlers, comic book characters, or shy musicians, the show knows how to turn normal pawn shop transactions into unforgettable moments. Steve Carell's look-alike might not have bought the diver's knife, but his visit to the shop made everyone laugh, and even though the knife wasn't sold, it was one of those memorable moments that make the show special. The same can be said about Mick Foley's appearance. The seller may have left with his autographed memorabilia, but wrestling fans got to see a funny segment with one of their favorite superstars. The Stan Lee episode stands out because it mixed comics and history, which is what Pawn Stars is known for. Stan Lee's signature on the Spider-Man strip made the piece much more valuable. Chumlee's excitement at meeting Lee made it clear that meeting a legend like Stan Lee is still a big deal, even after years of working at the shop. Dana White's visit was another high point, not just because of the huge amount of money involved, but also because it showed how the shop deals with high-end buyers. Selling a samurai sword for $35,000 and then adding another $30,000 for the rest of the swords is no small deal. Pawn Stars grew into something much bigger, so they added more display cases and hired more staff to handle the extra work. The shop changed to handle not only pawning and selling, but also the needs of being a TV set. Despite the changes, it stayed a family-run business at its core. Over the years, Pawn Stars has inspired a number of spin-offs. Some of the experts who appeared on Pawn Stars have been on shows like American Restoration and Counting Cards, captured the magic of the original Pawn Stars and became the most popular reality show. Even as other shows came and went, Pawn Stars kept going strong with its mix of history, humor, and haggling. The show stayed fresh by always adding new items and keeping the focus on the characters that fans had grown to love. As the show's later seasons went on, it started to accept its status as a cultural phenomenon, and its cast members became celebrities in their own right. Even though they were famous, they stayed grounded and kept running the shop and filming new episodes. What made Pawn Stars work was how real it felt. Even though it was a reality show, it never felt overly scripted or fake. The cast members' interactions felt real, and the items that came into the shop were real pieces of history. This realness struck a chord with viewers, making Pawn Stars stand out in a crowded field of reality TV. For years, but one question still stands. Was it the realness or the skillful editing that kept people watching? Like, share, and don't forget to subscribe.